All right, welcome back everyone. It is Functional Aging Summit 2021, day 2, and Cody and I are here with Martin Pazzani, and we've got a couple of housekeeping things, a few announcements, and just a few pieces of information to share. One, I am going to put in the chat the updated schedule in case you didn't notice. There was a slight schedule change this week. Robert Linkle and CJ Easter flipped time slots, so I'm going to put that in the chat right now so everybody has that. So as you're planning out your day and your sessions, there are 4 sessions live to choose from at 11:30 and 1:30 and 3 o'clock and 4:30, so just make sure you're checking that. So I just want to give a big thanks to all of our sponsors again. Kaiser yesterday was fantastic. They had 2 sessions. Dr. Emily Splickle with Naboso is back speaking again today. Nomley had 2 sessions yesterday. Urban Polling had a session yesterday. Guy Andrews with Exercise Etc. is back again today with senior games and balance Olympics. So can't really thank our sponsors enough. We've got several sponsors. Really want to encourage you to check out the virtual expo. In fact, Martin Pazzani of Activate is one of our sponsors, the peak sponsor this year. Cody, do you have anything you want to share? I know you weren't in the intro yesterday with Mark Middleton. And then before we turn it over to Martin, I have a couple more announcements.
Sure. Well, one thing that we're, at least I'm really excited about, I think we're all pretty excited about, is we have done kind of a long-awaited update to the Functional Aging Specialist certification. We're kind of calling it FAS 2.0. You won't see that in the name, but that's kind of what we're calling it. I spent probably the past 8 months doing a whole-scale revision of the entire course based on a lot of things, based on feedback that we've gotten from people, the interaction in our workshops, and some of the things that we were covering in our workshops in a little bit more detail that we weren't covering in the online course to supplement the online learning. We also had some bonus material in the original FAS that we just finally decided this needs to be a core part of what we're teaching, including a lot more information on power training and balance training. So within the course, there's one additional module or lesson in there that I added on healthy aging and longevity, and we talked about some of the longest lived populations in the world and go into some other principles of lifestyle such as nutrition and relationships and other behaviors to get a little bit more well-rounded perspective of older adults and what they're looking for and things that would make them healthy and live a long time. Some of the content got moved around and a lot of it got expanded. So this is overall a much bigger course than it was before. And hopefully that's a good thing and not a scary thing. It still is divided up into 3 sections with 3 quizzes that you would take to get certified. But this is, if you currently are a functional aging specialist, you already have access to the brand new material. And so you don't have to complete it in order to be be certified again. But I really recommend that you go through the course again because there's so much new material and information. And it's ordered a little differently, and even like for the assessments are much more robust. They're spelled out, they're itemized a little bit better. They're also applied to the different levels of function a little bit more clearly. And we have a whole list of assessment forms that you can just download and use immediately that will cover a wide variety of clients. And that also, the course also dovetails a little bit more clearly with some of the more advanced courses that we have, including what Martin's going to talk about with his area of brain health training. We have more information on that, more information on balance and Tai Chi, and in the other courses that we have that will add to your knowledge. So we think it's a much cleaner course. It's I think a more effective course with a lot of great content. So really encourage you to check that out if you haven't, and if you aren't a functional aging specialist, if you haven't taken that dive yet, really recommend that now's the time to do it. It's a much more comprehensive course, and I think you'll get a lot out of it.
It's also fully available in Spanish now and subtitled in Italian. And I'm not sure if it's fully translated in Italian, but if it's not, it will be soon. And it is
Yeah.
subtitled in Italian. So exciting to see we're adding more languages. So that's an exciting thing to be watching for, especially if you know people in other countries that would benefit, or people of other languages. So couple last things that I just wanted to share. Cody and I were talking about this even before you hopped on, Martin. It's sort of an interesting time that we've been through this past year. Certainly probably one of the most challenging times for me as a studio owner, and I know for many of our trainers, it's been a change in terms of job and how I deliver services and online outdoors. Is my studio going to stay open? And we recognize that's been a challenge for a lot of people. And as we move forward, things are going to continue to be different. And we're excited for live events, but we also realize that these virtual events open up a lot of opportunities. So I just want to recognize the fact that, this past year has been difficult, and it's been a challenging time for the fitness industry, and will probably continue to be so for the next 12 months. But we are excited for live events in the future. We have one planned in September in Denver, and we're starting to see live fitness conferences come back. And the Functional Aging Summit is planned to be in Denver live in person next year. Cody and I were just saying, well, should we just do it virtual again? Well, we're already committed to that hotel since we committed to them June of 2020. We're committed to be there live in person June 3rd and 4th, 2022 in Denver. So we're looking forward to seeing people in person, connecting, building relationships. That at its core is a lot of what FAI is about, and that's why Martin is speaking today. And if you're not familiar with Martin, if you're not familiar with his book, I gotta give a quick plug to his book. I mean, nothing simpler than Secrets of Aging Well. Get outside, the fitness you can't get in a gym. And highly appreciate this book, Martin, and really the passion you show all the time of disappearing. Like, well, where's Martin going now? He's lost in the woods somewhere. So I appreciate that perspective, and I know Martin's going to share some of that. If you're not familiar with Martin Pazzani, I'm going to put a poll up real quick because I'm just curious. Go ahead and answer the poll. If you've never heard of Activate Brain and Body, well, that's great. You're going to hear about it today. If you've never heard of Martin Pazzani, that's fine as well. You're going to certainly hear and learn from him today. We continue to say Martin is one of the people who has put more people in health clubs, in fitness programs, in health club memberships than anyone in history, as he used to be the chief marketing officer of Bally's and worked with Crunch Fitness, and has really been around the health club industry for a long time. But that is really not why we're excited to have him speak today. We're excited to have him speak today because he's on the forefront of changing the future of fitness and aging, and what he's doing with Activate Brain and Body is really, really exciting. So the fact that he has summited mountains all around the world, and actually recently made it to base camp at Everest, those are just his passions. But his passion for changing how boomers and seniors age and how they experience community and fitness is really why we want him to be part of the Functional Aging Summit and part of the FAI family now and forever. So Martin, we're going to turn it over to you. Cody and I will be here for Q&A. Let's see how that poll turned out. Have you ever heard of Activate Brain and Body? Yes, 26%. No, 58%. I have heard of Martin, but not Activate is 16%. So by and large, people have not heard of Activate. So you're going to release the best kept secret here. So lastly, I would love to know, before I turn it completely over to Martin, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from today. We've got people on live, I know, from around the world. So type in what country you're tuning in from, if you're a functional aging specialist, if this is your first ever summit, or if it's your 7th and you've been at every single one, type that in the chat as well. So Martin, welcome. Thanks for being here, and please take it away.
Thank you, Dan, and good morning, FAI. I presume you can see the screen okay? Everything good? Okay,
yep.
Great.
See it great.
So, yeah, this is, like always for me, the most fun conference of the year. And some of you probably remember that I was the first speaker at the first conference 7 years ago. So what an honor and a privilege that we're back here 7 years later. and growing like crazy, and I do think needed more than ever. And as Dan says, I've been around, and I'm going to take you on a short journey, the history of the fitness business almost, because I think it's important to learn from where we came, where we are now, and then we're going to talk mostly about where we're going, and I hope to get through that as quickly as possible. But again, my background, thank you for the plug on the book, Dan. I have been around. I was not born in the fitness category. I'm a consumer packaged goods marketer, an ad guy in Madison Avenue, and a management consultant. I came to the fitness industry officially in 2002. But, you know, I have been a member of Bally, strangely enough, since 1979. I bought a lifetime membership at Bally in 1979 that I soon found out only lasted for 3 years, and I had to start paying them again. So we'll talk about that, some lifetime. But anyway, I've been around, and we're going to talk a little bit about Activate, and I hope some of you will listen to my colleagues, because we've got 2 other sessions that have already occurred. You can go back and watch them, because that's where the real expertise comes from, is the stuff you're going to learn from those guys. We'll point you in that direction shortly. But interestingly, during COVID, I was planning on going around the country doing a book tour on this book. And instead, I wound up doing 50 webinars to people above age 60 who are wannabe active agers. And it turned out I got this really interesting insights into what's happening right now on people's minds who are above 60 and are interested in fitness. So some of that is woven into this. Some of it comes from some research I did, and we're going to talk about that. So here's what we're trying to accomplish today. Big picture context. I'm a big picture guy. I want to talk about where we came from, where we're going. Reinforce the fact that you guys are all in the exact right place. 50 plus is where it's at in the future. I'm also going to review decades of insider research and insight. Some stuff that's relevant to you. I could go on for hours and hours about this. I've done a lot of it. But I want to tell you something. Most of the research, the really insightful research, doesn't get shared publicly because companies use it for their own benefit. Since I've been gone from the companies that did this research for so long, I'm going to share some stuff that probably has never been shared before. So I hope you'll, and I'm going to highlight some of that. And then I'll point you in the right direction, hopefully. So what we're not going to do is, I'm not going to tell you how to run a studio. My team is much better at that than I am. I'm not going to tell you about training techniques. You guys are all trainers. You're way better than I am at that. I'm not going to talk about social media, any of that stuff. And I'm not going to talk much about the pandemic, because it's, I think at this point, pretty much talked out. And you all know that it's accelerated digital. So that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about big picture stuff, where we came from, where we're going. Why am I not advancing here? Let's see. Okay, so just one thing I want to talk about my history. I had this really interesting job for 7 years. At Foot Cone Building, I ran a thing called the chess team. The chess team's role was to basically study the competition, to do industry and competitive analysis, to identify what's called white space, strategic opportunities, create competitive advantage, and we did this thing called move, counter move planning, which is, if they do this, we should do this, basically a chessboard, right? So we had clients from around the world. I had people on 6 continents, and we would help companies like Kraft figure out how to get more pizza business, how American Express could steal Citibank's high value customers, how the United States Postal Service could compete against FedEx, projects like that. And so right about at the height of that, and I was doing that for about 7 years, I got a call from a headhunter who told me, hey, something is happening over there at Bally. I was working at Foot Cone Building doing this chess team stuff. We were actually doing a chess project for Bally. And Bally ran this ad in the Wall Street Journal for a chief marketing officer. This is fall of 2002. And my first reaction was, oh, the last thing I want to do is be one of 5,000 resumes that wind up at Bally, because that's no fun. But in any case, long story short, after 6 months, you working with a recruiter, working with some people at Bally, I wound up winning the lottery and got this position. And it's kind of it was a thrill, but on the other hand, it's kind of one of those things where you be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. But this is what got me from a member to looking behind the curtain. And then it gave me the opportunity to do some research, which interestingly, it's now 17 years later, has led to Activate Brain and Body. And I'm thrilled about that. I wish it had happened sooner, but you know, sometimes things take time. But anyway, I usually start, this is the first thing I encountered And I usually start off most of my fitness presentations with this graph. And I usually, when there's a live audience, I'll ask you to tell me what this graph is. And most people will throw out a few answers, and actually most of them will be right. And this is the graph that made me actually, not only I'm passionate about the fitness industry, but I'm also very critical of the fitness industry. So as a result, this graph contains data, and strangely enough, it's the exact same chart. The number of fitness clubs, the number of diet centers, but also the obesity rate and the diabetes rate. So now I'm an insider in the fitness industry, and I'm looking at this data and I'm saying, this doesn't fit. What's wrong with this picture? Why isn't the fitness industry, why isn't the diet industry helping create a healthier population? And so I set out to try to get answers to that. And I'm going to share some of that with you, and also the course of the history of the business and how it came to be. So the first thing I did was believe it or not, $2 million worth of landmark consumer research. This has probably never been done before. I brought my old group in, the chess team, to study every single competitor and what their moves were and why they did them. I brought in a company called Consumer Dynamics to dig deeply into the brains of consumers, both members and non-members. And I brought in a design company called IDEO, actually a human factors company based in Silicon Valley, to study and develop the fitness experience of the future. The most important thing about this, and I've seen this in category after category, is we emphasized talking to people who were not members of health clubs, who were not participating, who were basically couch potatoes. And we used research companies that had never done fitness research before, because we didn't want to get the same old answers from the same old people. And I have to tell you, this was the impetus for creating some marketing programs. As Dan says, we drove 1 million people into Bali in 1 year, became a Harvard business case study, because we changed the way we do fitness marketing. Now, that was the easy part, because ultimately it didn't work because the company was operationally and financially challenged. And ultimately, as you know, Bali practically no longer exists. But this information, shockingly, I take it out every year, is still as fresh as could be, because no one is doing it. And I'm going to share that with you now, some of it. But let's go through the history first. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm with this funny joke. My first day on the job, I discovered that the online presence of BaliTotalFitnessSucks.com was bigger than Bali.com. And so we had a bunch of people wondering about, well, how do I fix this? And I said, how do we make Bali better? And I said, well, the first thing we have to do is not make it suck. And the answer to that question was in that research. And these 4 bullet points here, critical to the current fitness business as we know it right now, but really critical back then when a company was in dire straits. So we learned that the fitness industry was its own worst enemy. And its largest company, Bali, was the prime culprit. And this is a result of membership scams. I mentioned that I bought a lifetime membership. A 22-year-old me wanted to join for life, and it wasn't really a lifetime membership. Predatory trainers were rampant in fitness clubs back in the early 80s. And it was such a macho atmosphere, it alienated women. And a lot of that still exists, I'm sorry to say. But a lot of it is improved, drastically improved. And again, you guys are the solution to this. But the industry also still myopically youth focused, and it has been forever. That's why I'm so excited to be now focused on the older segment of the population. An industry too insular, did not pay attention to best practices in other industries, was slow to adapt, and most amazingly to me, it did not serve 2/3 of the potential population. So the fitness industry just didn't deliver. And we really wanted to dig in why. And so you start with the history of trying to figure out why it's self-serving, why it ignores its many customers, why it's so crazily focused on acquisition of members instead of getting results for members, and how it grew even though America became unfit and started generating cover stories everywhere about the obesity epidemic and unfit kids. And we still have these problems. They're worse than ever. Yet we can solve them, and we're going to talk about how to solve them. Just a sidebar, I want to talk about IHRSA. IHRSA I have to say, I couldn't be more disappointed. I was disappointed in when I was at Bally because I didn't think they represented us well. They focused on just top line numbers. They celebrate size. They did not celebrate effectiveness, results. But recently, I've just gotten just utterly frustrated with them because I think they let us all down. They let the entire industry down by not advocating for us during the pandemic. It was quite clear to all of us that we were part of the solution, not part of the problem, and we never should have been shut down. And so I've got a real problem with URSA, and I just think that a lot can be done here in the future, but we're going to ignore URSA for the moment and focus on the history because it's a really interesting history, and it gets me excited about the future when I think back on this because. Again, because I was the chess team, we're going to look at this as if it's a board game and moves. So to me, the first move that I think is important for you to know, and I'm skipping, there's a lot of moves in here. I'm going to skip, only deal with the top line moves. The first move I want you to understand is that Jack LaLanne, who I think is kind of like the patron saint of fitness, and he did functional fitness before anybody knew what it was. But he opened his first gym in 1936. The height of the Great Depression. Okay, so we've been through a pretty bad year. He opened it. The Depression began in 1931. He had such vision that fitness would play a role, and in fact, he is still. He's no longer alive, but he's still an influence. And his books, "Live Young Forever," were decades ahead of their time. My first encounter with the fitness business was in the early 60s, watching my mother with a chair and a broom doing functional fitness, following Jack LaLanne's moves on television. And I just give the guy an incredible amount of credit for triggering something. And I think often we should go back and learn from him because he had it right. In any case, the next big move was post-World War II, Presidents Truman and Eisenhower felt that the fitness of the American population wasn't what it should be. They began what evolved into the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. It became really important. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, President Kennedy put physical fitness and the challenges into all schools. And they felt that it was a strategic weapon for self-defense for the United States was to have a fit population. And that just, those two things seeded the idea that fitness was important because before then, there wasn't much organized fitness going on unless you were competing in the Olympics or college athletes. So fitness as a activity, as a social activity, as a what you would do as a person, there wasn't much of it. So the next era that I think is important to note is when organized brands started to happen. Now, before this, there were a few smaller ones. Joe Weider had gyms, Vic Tanny had gyms, European Health Spa. But the two big players in the late 70s were Gold's and Bally. And the history of this is interesting. I mean, Gold started, as Muscle Beach, Venice, California, and it became associated with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Interestingly, decades later, it was parodied by Hans and Franz on Saturday Night Live. We'll talk about that in a second. But Bally started by a guy named Don Wildman started rolling up smaller fitness chains. He actually bought Jack LaLanne. He bought Vic Tanny. He bought European Health Spa and started amassing them as one brand, Chicago Health and Tennis. And he had really noble goals. I mean, he was a true fitness guy. He was a trainer. And he lived fitness as well as anybody I've ever met. The thing that changed it for Bally was he sold the company to the casino in Las Vegas. And the moment that started, it stopped being all about fitness and started being about what became a parody in the movie Perfect. I don't know if any of you even remember it, but it was an early 80s movie, Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta. And it just reinforced the fact that Bally was turning into a disco, a social club, and a place you had to look perfect to go before you joined. And it created the wrong image. Now, what's important about this era is it wasn't a catalyst for gym brands, definitely. But my research showed that it actually repelled more people than it attracted. And it created what we have right now is where, especially at the older population, the memory of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Muscle Beach, Hans and Franz, and this Bally Disco thing that really didn't care about members sent people looking for other solutions. And I think, strangely enough, when you think about what we just went through, some of the way the fitness industry was, I guess, punished during the pandemic was because the memory of these not particularly well-run, sometimes dirty, sometimes scammy companies prevented Congress and governors from thinking about what we all know as the new fitness. The old image is latent, and we have to work extra hard to get past this image and start being a different kind of an industry. And I've been saying this for a long time, and I still think it's an issue, but now we really have a chance because we're starting over, basically. So let's go through the history here. Bally and Golds. The next move is what I call the copycats. 24 Hour Fitness and LA Fitness basically did the same model with different brands, different colors. And the industry really actually boomed, and that was the late 80s. Then this is where it gets interesting to me. You know, in all of every category, there's basically two business strategies. There's price and there's differentiation. And this is when entrepreneurs looked at what the fitness industry was, which is 24, LA, Bally, and Golds, pretty much running the same business model with slight variations. How do we start to create niches for ourselves? What do we do? Well, the first thing that usually happens in a category is you differentiate based on price. And so what happened is, and I give great credit to the founder of Lifetime Fitness, the founder of Lifetime Fitness actually was an ex-Bally guy who knew there was a better way. So he created Lifetime. Lifetime, basically a high-end country club for fitness. Equinox evolved into this high-end price point as well. At the other end, Planet Fitness and Anytime, very well positioned to be no frills, low priced opportunities. And so the category split, high end, low end, and all the other companies, Bally, 24, LA, stuck in the middle. Bad place to be. And this is exactly when I joined Bally. Bally was panicking because of all these new companies, didn't know what move to make. And frankly, we're kind of confused about how to do it. But this is when the fitness industry really started getting interesting, was when new companies came in, entrepreneurs built new models, and look at these brands. These are all the big brands today. And by the way, Curves. Curves, a byproduct of the fact that the traditional fitness business alienated women. Women would not join Bally unless it was their only choice. They didn't want to be embarrassed. They didn't want to be judged. They wanted a safe space. And none of those places were really safe spaces for unfit women. I thought Curves was so well positioned to do that. And so you've got these interesting things happening in the fitness category. Then you've got another wave. And this was about 2005 to 2010. You've got a wave of really differentiated, interesting niche companies that found ways to do interesting things and be really different. By the way, Crunch is older than this era, but Crunch really came on the map after it stopped being a high-end hipster place and became a low-priced franchise, and then it just took off. So some interesting things happening, but you'll notice in the top right corner, what we have here is Dan and Cody getting the idea that maybe there's a better way. This is something's going on here with this fitness business. And yeah, it's really youth focused. And look at the population bubble that's getting older. And what do we do about this? So here's where we are today. We've got something that started out as Jack LaLanne. It went through all this evolutions, and I'm leaving out 100 fitness brands that won't fit on this chart. And the gorillas in the room right now are Planet Fitness and Anytime. You all have to contend with those no matter where you are. And now increasingly, I'm giving Peloton some credit here. They're not a gym, obviously, but they've kind of got a lot of people wondering if people are ever going to come back to the gym. How do I deal with Peloton? And I give them great credit. It's a marvelous thing. So this is the end game we're in today. And to start thinking about the way a strategist looks at the business, here's the space we're in right now. Look at this. Big brands, big companies, And look at the two dimensions here. Some have minimalist service across the horizontal axis. Some have full service. Then you look along the price dimension, up and down, high price, low price. The playing field is chock full. And now Peloton is this thing that has the potential to take people out of the clubs. What do I do? What do I do? Well, I've got to tell you, this is like an incredible time to be in this business. But if you're thinking that you are David to Goliath and you're going to get squashed, or you're this little fish and you're about to get swallowed by a behemoth whale, I got some news for you. These are really good positions to be in, and this is what we specialize in. And to tell the truth, if you think about the last year, I'm a big fan of this concept of comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone, learn new skills. That's how you grow. Above comfort zone is the concept of a crucible. You are all now survivors of what's a crucible. And a crucible is this black swan event, an unpredictable, high impact, low frequency event. Think about it. Severe trial, different elements interact. It always leads to the creation of something new. You are now, think of yourselves this way, as forged in steel. You're stronger than you were before this. If you're still here, you're on this call, you're at the FAI conference, you are stronger than you were before. And as a result, more capable of innovating past this giant behemoth run category. So here's what we're going to talk about what to do. What's my next move? And you know what I say? I say, take that chessboard and dump all the pieces off it. And we're starting over in the lower left-hand corner with some new moves with an entirely new outlook on the business. And that's the way I'm approaching the business. And that's the way I think you should approach it too. Now, differentiation. At the very beginning, the very basic level of differentiation, I want you all to understand this. None of you are price competitors. Since there are only two basic strategies, your only option is meaningful differentiation. You have to be the red tulip. Now, there's lots of different ways of being the red tulip, but that's what you have to do. You got to stand out in this ocean of sameness, in this ocean of big impersonal companies. So that's number one, meaningful differentiation. Okay, here's the category again. What do we do first of all? Well, I want you to rethink the way the category is structured. Look at these dimensions, high to low price, minimalist to full service. Now, if you add this new dimension, youth focus to 50 focus, look what happens. Every other big fitness brand gets depositioned to the left side of the category. And I'll give Curve some credit. They appeal to an older audience than most. But FAS and you guys, it has white space in the category. None of these other companies are focused on 50 plus. Some of them give lip service to it, but they're not focused and they're not specialists. That gives you a blue ocean to compete. That's the number one thing you have to keep remembering is how you make yourselves different from these big companies, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those options. But again, white space exists, and more so now than ever. I maintain that when people start rushing back, and they're starting it now, they're going to want new choices. They're not going to want to rush back to the old big box gym if they were a member. I don't know if they're going to want to run and rush back to Planet Fitness. You have the opportunity to position yourselves as the solution post-pandemic because you're fresh, you're new. Now, another reason I know these companies aren't focused on it, there's this book, it's 4 years old. It's supposedly an overview of the entire fitness category, financially and strategically, the new economy of mind and body. But I read it cover to cover twice. It omits any discussion of 50 plus. It omits functional training. It omits the hottest new thing we're talking about now, brain health. It omits Tai Chi. It omits the future. It's basically driving the car by looking in the rearview mirror. And that is never a way to innovate. So I know most of the analysts aren't seeing what we're seeing. Most of the big companies aren't seeing what we're seeing. So this is great opportunity for us. Now here's the big picture of the opportunity. We are now, there's no denying there's an unstoppable tectonic force called aging. The longevity economy is something that's happening as a result of this, and it is going to reshape the economy. It's just reshaping the workforce. It's reshaping nearly every facet of society and culture. It was a great gift of the 20th century. How to live with longevity is the challenge of the 21st century. And think about what this implies. This goes way beyond how do I get an older population to join my studio. This goes into how I'm going to live in my 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Am I going to retire? And when am I going to retire? Can I afford to retire? When can I afford to stop working? And will I go bankrupt because of my health situations? How do I maintain health during these longer years? And people are having trouble verbalizing this. Some are saying it, but these are the problems that we solve. That's why I'm so optimistic about the future. And at the same time, strangely, because of pandemic, but even before that, sitting is the smoking of this generation. You know, in the 60s and the 70s, people were smokers. Got rid of that problem. Everybody got fat. Now sitting is the issue. And people know they're not supposed to be sitting. We have a sitting epidemic. And they're starting to think, especially now, I got to get up and start doing something. And here's the thing that really elevates it to near crisis: the cost of healthcare. Without fitness, healthcare costs skyrocket to a point where not only is it personally unaffordable, it's economically unaffordable for countries. You cannot have the level of exponential healthcare cost increase and an aging population and expect to exist. Something will crash. And so this is why the 50+ consumer is worried. They're worried they're going to outlive their money and their health is going to decline, and they're going to live the last years of their lives in an incapacitated state. And it's creating a deep-rooted fear that is forcing people to look for solutions. You ask people, do they need to be fit? 99% of them in the AARP study reported it's important to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Still now, with all that's going on, only about 33% use the fitness business to achieve a healthy lifestyle. And I will maintain that half of those 33% are doing it wrong without a trainer and not getting the results they need to stay healthy. So this is where you guys come in. This is the future. And so, yeah, if you think about it in terms of David and Goliath, number one thing you can be doing as the pandemic ends is starting to speak to people who may be ready to come back to Planet or 24-hour fitness, and recognize the fact that when they're going back to those places, they're big and impersonal. They're not focused on 50+. They're by no means expert in 50+. They're constrained by their brand image, which often is counter to serving an older population. And they're also slow to adapt. So yeah, they give lip service. Yeah, we'll welcome you. If you're 60, yeah, sure, you can join. But they're not specialists. You guys, you small personal trainers, can differentiate yourself by being hyper-focused on 50+. Also, by the way, most of you, I think many of you, are 50+. So, you know, I can tell you this. Most 50, 60+ people don't want to be trained. They don't want to talk to a 25-year-old trainer, much less be trained by a 25-year-old trainer. You guys have an advantage here. And you ought to be able to speak the language of the older population as a result of that, because you are the brand image. And as small operators, you're nimble. And that gives you a great advantage over these big companies. So I suggest you give some thought to right now how you are going to position yourself for people coming back, maybe not wanting to go back to the big box gym they were in. I think that's some low-hanging fruit. Now, that's the obvious thing. I want to go beyond that because there's other opportunities here. Okay, there's 50 million members in fitness clubs right now. And what happens when you start thinking about just poaching other people's members? You're in a share fight. It's expensive and they're not often loyal. They'll often go for what's right, the shiny object right in front of them. And this is the big insight here that I learned. You have to look in other places for the future. The future of fitness is not in people trading members back and forth, back and forth. The future of what we're doing is in looking at the 50 million home fitness users and app users. This is low-hanging fruit. They are looking for coaching solutions because they're on their own. So they have already raised their hand and basically said, I think I need to be fit, but I don't know what to do. They're coaching targets for you guys. And also, here's the thing. Most home users don't have enough equipment or using an app. They don't have variety. You can provide them with variety. And I can tell you from a consumer behavior standpoint, getting bored with a piece of fitness equipment or an app, getting bored with the same old workout is the number one reason people stop working out. So they want variety. You can provide variety that they're not getting out of their home usage. And also they want a community. I'll tell you, there's been this ongoing debate last year. Will people come back to the fitness clubs? Absolutely they will. Now, will they also use at-home solutions and they also use digital solutions? Of course. There's going to be a 360-degree ecosystem. But the core of this business is a community of people interacting with their peers and a trainer that they trust inside the four walls. I firmly believe that. So the other thing is, and this is what we did pretty well at Bally, even with our operationally challenged company, we talked to the people doing nothing. We discovered they're doing nothing because they've rejected other options. They are turned off by the imagery, by the customer experience of the fitness business. Yet they know, according to the AARP study, they have to do something. So that is where this turns the market from a 50 million person market to a 150 million person market. I'd rather fish in that ocean than a smaller ocean. And again, these numbers, I rounded them off. They're plus or minus 5 or 10% here and there. For symmetry, I rounded them off. But think about it. 2/3 of the market is not where Goliath focuses. It's not where their strength is, and it's where you guys can play. So that's what I want to tell you. Don't look at, you have to look at the low-hanging fruit of people who have rejected other options, and you can find them with the proper events and the proper programs. So here's how you reinvent it. Again, we've already talked about 50% of the public is above age 50. You have to start thinking about fitness as medicine and a certain kind of medicine. I call preventive medicine. Fitness now is, and it's going to come out in the next 12 months, even more. Fitness was potentially one of the solutions to the pandemic. Fitness, because of its preventive abilities and what it does for immune systems, was potentially, it was so wrong to close the fitness business during the height of this. So you have to evolve into fitness as medicine. You have to become professional caregivers. Position yourself as professional caregivers, not unsuitable predatory trainers. You can't follow fads. The only fitness that's going to matter going forward is science-based fitness. You can't make stuff up on the fly. You have to have it, has to be rooted in results and science. So that's number one. Reinvent it by looking at that. Terminology can evolve. Instead of thinking about things in an aggressive manner, we got to think about them in a softer way. Functional fitness, balance, injury protection, improve, and be supportive and welcoming. We need to eliminate the intimidation factor. Some people, you just have to face it. If they've rejected the fitness business, part of the reason is they're intimidated by the environment. If you start thinking about that as not their problem, but our problem, how do we solve that? Let's bring them into the gym by being less intimidating. And just for instance, simple things like the evolution of free weights to Kaiser equipment. It's less intimidating. There's some great ways to do this. And some of them, here's some of the feedback I got in my research. People don't want a rehab center, but they also don't want so this lady said, an Orwellian vision of well-oiled 22-year-olds marching to the same music. And it's true. The fitness industry turns off a lot of people. You have to be there for them. And this double asterisk reds, these are the things I learned in that research. The environment can be evolved, modified to be far more welcoming to a 50+ audience. And I can go into an entire 2 hours based on this alone, but I'll leave it there for you. You can go back and reference this. You ought to also ask yourselves, are your skills appropriate. I'm not saying you have to dress differently, but I am saying maybe if you look exactly like the trainers you're going to find in any other club, you might be perceived that way. And if you want to be perceived differently, maybe dress more like medical people or rehab people. Just a thought. But in any case, advanced professional certifications in education, critical. Experience, critical. Empathy, focus on the customer, not, hey, look at my abs. Outcome-oriented, not acquisition-oriented. Outcome-oriented is actually the best retention tool you can have. Retention is where the money is made, and you have to be a caregiver. You can't be an old-style predatory trainer. And I know you guys aren't, but I'm saying this gives you guys the opportunity to position yourself in a way that is so different from every other fitness company and fitness provider, because you're small, and you're just you're focused and you're specialists. So let me say, the last thing I want to say to you guys today is this: coaching now is needed more than ever. Ever. Most people, because of the complexity of what's going on now, too much choice, too many options, too many moving pieces, they freeze, they don't know what to do. You position yourself at the center of this. You are not just a personal trainer. You are a coach and a guide to how to navigate the future of fitness. That will make you very valuable to members, to your clients. And if you can tell them how to deal with the apps, instead of seeing an app as a competition, instead of seeing Peloton as a competition, instead of seeing other things as competitors, you be the glue that makes all that work for a person. And that's where the future is. So that's the big opportunity we have here at Functional Aging Institute. I'm so glad to do that. And that's kind of what we're doing with Activate. I'm going to say a couple words about that. We have a vision. We're trying to reinvent the fitness business as a thing called upstream preventive healthcare. I have a problem with the healthcare business. Most of what they call preventive healthcare isn't really preventing anything. It's just minimizing the symptoms of a condition. Fitness, however, because it prevents the condition from happening in the first place, occurs so far upstream that you never get sick in the first place. And I believe fitness is the cure for a lot of things that are ailing society today, certainly aging. And we know that. There's a lot of science about this. So remember the term upstream preventive healthcare. It helps you differentiate yourself from preventive healthcare. That's what we are. Fitness is upstream preventive healthcare. At Activate, our mission is to radically improve the trajectory of aging. Yeah, we're focused on brain health, actually. We're a brain health company, but we're above that. Our mission is aging and anti-aging and living better longer. And interestingly, our culture, I'm really excited about this. Our founders actually span 6 decades. I don't think there's many companies that can say that. We have founding managers in their 20s to mid 70s. And every decade in between. And that gives us an interesting perspective. And so we're really excited about what we're doing. You've probably seen a couple of my colleagues presenting today. We can answer questions later about what we're doing, but we're building this company to scale. We're opening our first location in Cincinnati in the fall and hope to start scaling very fast after that. If you have not seen these presentations from my colleagues, I recommend them highly. John Spence and Mike Gelfcott, operating experts, unparalleled. And you have to hear what they have to say about creating a culture that works in and what you can learn from them. And then Marie Stoner and Adam Ortman, we've created some brain-body programming in trial. They're going to talk a little bit about that, why it's important. And I think we're really at the leading of what's going on. We have figured out how to operationalize this. I'm very excited about our launch. Some of you may remember, if you were around for the 7 years, I actually talked about Activate 7 years ago. So it's been kind of a long road to get this going, but we are here now. We think the timing is right. It's all been made even stronger by the fact that Ryan Glatt has now created a brain health certification, which gave it legitimacy. So we're real excited about what we're doing. And if you haven't seen any of these presentations, I recommend you go back and watch them. Please do, if you have more questions, today at 12:30, these 4 incredible experts will be on a live Q&A sessions at lunch. And I really recommend you tune into that if you're at all intrigued about what's going on the future of fitness, running a better club, understanding brain health, all the things we're here talking about at the Functional Aging Institute today. So that's what I've got for you. I'm pretty much done. If you want to contact me, and by the way, I'm all over social media. I welcome connection. You can email info@Activate Brain and Body for information about the company. Yeah, I do webinars for trainers about my book, and they go over really well. If anyone's interested in collaborating with me on a webinar, I get paid for these webinars when I do them outside of FAI, but for people at FAI, I do them for free because I really believe in them. So if you want to do a webinar with me about hiking, it's really not hiking. It's a book about longevity and active aging and fitness in the context of hiking. So feel free to hit me up on that. If you want to join my email list, there you are. So with that, Cody and Dan, I think I'm pretty much done. I think we were going to do some questions if we need to, or if not, I'll turn it back to you and people can go back
Yeah, let's
on.
definitely spend some time with questions, and I'll get us started here, Martin, because we didn't really talk much about the past year and kind of coming out of the pandemic. Obviously, you've had lots of conversations about the current situation and how it's affected potentially the next few years. Dan and I have talked about this a lot. So I'd like to get your perspective on, especially for trainers, for fitness specialists, working with older adults, on not just kind of technology and that sort of thing, but even kind of from a physical perspective. What are some of your thoughts on the next year to two for the older adult population, fitness related, coming out of this pandemic?
Well, Cody, I think they're learning a few things, which I think bode well for us. Now, caution, I would advise, and my operating guys will have a lot to say about this. So let's ask them that question again at 12:30. But for me, of course, you've got to be cleaner. You've got to be antiseptic. You've got to make sure everybody is safe. That's number one, because especially we talked about safety is critical. But I do believe, especially with the older consumer, if they're not frail and don't have pre-existing conditions, I think we're going to see more people come back into the four walls than ever before, because they know they need a community, they know they need a trainer, they know they need to do something and they're not getting results, and they know that fitness is medicine. They know it builds a stronger immune system. They know it prevents a lot of maladies from occurring. And again, there's this untapped need. And if you can make them feel safe and well coached, I think they'll come back in droves.
Yeah, that was some of our thoughts too, is that one, I think there's obviously a need for trainers to understand the older adult, the physiology, the functional aspects of an older adult. And a lot of older adults have, even if they were active, have become less active, over the course of the pandemic. So they're going to need a little bit more help. They're going to come out of this with some balance issues and whatnot, maybe they didn't have before if they didn't stay active. But also, I think, in my opinion, the bounce back is going to be greater than where it was before. I think there's been sort of a mindset shift or an awareness raising, kind of an aha moment for the entire population of it's okay, I understand that fitness is good for me. And now it's like, okay, I think fitness is critical for me. I need to do something and will come back. I think the rebound will be greater.
I think there's the mindset that it's no longer an option. It's a must do. I think people will start to think about personal trainers the same way they think about their financial advisor. I've got to have one. I've got to be fit. I've got to be healthy. I can't count on my pension. I can't count on the healthcare system. I can't count on anyone else but myself to take charge of my fitness. I think that's germinating in people near retirement age or in their 50s now, even younger. I think people are starting to see they can do something. You can take charge of the way that you age. So do it.
Yep.
All right, we got quite a few questions. I actually appreciated Anthony shared early on in your session that his first training job was at a Bally's until they went under and he got laid off. Man, oh man, he says that was
Sorry about that, Anthony.
2006 to 2010. So
you were after me. I tried, man. I tried, but what can I tell you?
Wasn't Martin's fault.
Yeah, Brenda says I love history. So great to combine fitness with a history lesson. lot of good questions coming in. Marcia, just this is kind of a housekeeping question. Marcia's asking about when sessions will be available for review. So we are recording all these. This one is recorded. They should be available Wednesday, but don't hold me to that. So our web team will be working on those Monday and Tuesday. All the recordings, including this one, should be available by Wednesday. Jen asks a good question, Martin. You know,
one that we've discussed too a lot.
Yes, the next generation is coming, right? Do you have insight how to reach the Gen X generation, many of whom are turning 50 but do not see themselves as aging or like boomers? We seem to be the invisible generation in terms of marketing.
Well,
which I think is true, right? Boomers and millennials are kind of what everybody seems to fight over, and Gen X is forgotten, the greatest generation, right?
Yeah. I kind of forgot it too. I'm sorry to say. No, that's not true. I have a lot of thoughts on it. They're hunches though, and I really don't want to share them. It is an odd thing. My specialty is in the boomer generation. I've done so much research there, and I am one. So it's easy for me to relate to that. Gen X is probably going to be an easier sell, I think, in some ways, because they grew up with a different kind of a fitness business. Gen X didn't have corrupt Bally and Arnold Schwarzenegger chasing them away, really, and Hans and Franz being a parody. They had the Planet Fitness Anytime generation. That's kind of what they grew up into, which was a nicer fitness business. And they don't have the negatives, I think, that the boomer generation has to deal with. So in some ways, I think it'll be an easier sell. I also think they probably have been looking at their parents and said, I don't want to age that way. I can stay younger longer. And the way I do that is being fit now. So yeah, in Activate, we're starting to think our target audience is going to skew younger than we thought. Maybe 45 is where we're starting to think of where it's going to start. So I originally, as you guys know, when we started talking about this 10 years ago, I was thinking it was 65 plus, retirement plus. But now with all the active agers and all the people defying aging, and frankly, what's been amazing to me is how many age 60 plus hikers there are in the world who are just saying, screw this, I'm not getting old. I'm going to climb Mount Fuji next year. I'm going to train to go to Everest Base Camp. So there's a lot more people getting the message and living active styles now.
Yeah, I think that, the Gen X population is a big population too, right? And all three of these populations are big populations, which is why if you track the aging population out to the year 2100, it still hasn't quite leveled off because there's more people coming, right? All of us, the longevity that's here is here for all of us. So focusing on boomers right now, I think is the priority and the biggest opportunity. But the Gen Xers are coming along right behind them, and in many cases with them. And I think the attitudes, the opinions, the perspectives will skew a little bit differently. I think for one, because the Gen Xers, like, we are watching more and more active boomers break stereotypes of what it means to be old. And so the boomers, they're the ones that have had to break the stereotypes. There weren't many Jack LaLannes out there, right?
That's right.
Those are rare people. We're seeing more and more of them, especially on social media. So there's almost of course I'm going to live to be 90, and I'm going to,
well, see, Cody, that's the big thing. And, when I talk about, we haven't quite figured out how to live with longevity yet. There's this kind of equation in people's heads. When do I retire? And the answer to that question is, am I going to be forced to retire because I appear to be too old? So can I stay focused and sharp in my job, and can it be my choice? So can I work longer? Because if you work longer, chances are your retirement nest egg is going to last longer. I personally think somewhere in the equation, the retirement age has to go up, because think about it. If your life expectancy is 90, you retire at 65, 67. What are you going to do with all that time? You can't be collecting a pension. The money will run out at some point, unless you're super wealthy. So you might as well accept the fact that I'm going to stay fit and work longer and live longer and live better and not enter into that period of decline. I know we've all talked about this, the concept of aging rapidly, live long, die fast. You know, the whole concept that Mark Middleton was even talking about yesterday. That's getting into people's heads now. I don't have to go on that long, slow decline. I can actually stay fit until the day I drop. And Dan, I know you and I have talked about this a lot. You've had some clients who have done that. They're fit until they're 95, and they get sick and they go fast. That's you know, I wrote about that in my book. That's the way I want to go. I want to collapse at age 100 on a mountaintop somewhere. I don't want to go in a hospital in a wheelchair. I don't want any of that to happen. And I think this whole generation is looking at the options. And what an awful way to live, being in a wheelchair, being cared for, being a burden to your family, slipping into dementia. Those are expensive, very resource consuming issues. So I think people don't want that to happen. And I think people are going to start to take activity now that they know they can. There's solutions. There's trainers who can help. There's techniques that can help. Let's take advantage of it.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, aging provides a different perspective that is different for everybody, a little bit different for different generations, but it's also the same for everybody, right? That there's this commonality of what happens as you age and as you cross these thresholds of 50 years old and 55 and 60, because there's a maturational aspect, there's a perspective aspect of you're looking forward at less years than you're looking back on, right? That's very powerful for people.
Yes.
And so even in some of these Gen Xers, if they're not getting it now, I think it's coming, right? I think it's just a matter of that maturational process.
Yes.
is going to happen, that we've seen defined in many psychological literature. They're going to have this awakening, and well, then even if they're not active, I think they'll see those boomers being more active, and I think they will slide into it a little bit easier.
Martin, you're a classic example of what Cody and I talk about. We've seen across FAI, right? People come to us in their 60s and they're like, well, can I still start a fitness business? And I'm like, well, sure. I mean, here's Martin in his 60s starting and birthing a new fitness concept and franchise. When 20 years ago, you probably would have been expected to be retiring now, right? Like, I mean, your parents probably were retired by now at this age.
Yeah, Dan, my parents retired at 63. By 65, they seemed 80 to me. And I not only didn't want to repeat that, but I just don't see any reason to do it. First of all, I like working and I like staying fit. So what am I going to do? Play golf? You know, and so you know, be productive. It's being productive in the world is kind of a good thing, and I think more and more people are going to be like that's the concept of active agers. And you know something, older entrepreneurs are one of the fastest growing areas of the economy right now, because not only if you have all your faculties and you have the stamina to work and the energy and the grit to do it. Think about this: you have 30, 40, 50 years of business experience to call on. You're not making rookie mistakes. So there's an advantage to having all that experience and still having the energy to use it. And so the answer is absolutely. I've been doing some podcasts with anti-aging people, and I stress that point over and over. 65, which is what I am. I feel 40. You know, and I remember my grandfather seemed ancient at 65. So we've changed that, and there's just no reason to slow down. It was assumed you were going to slow down when you hit your 60s. No, it's the other way around. You slow down because you're the way you thought about it changed. You expected to slow down. You expected to retire. You don't have to.
I love Sherry Greenberg just put in the chat. I love this. Her father retired as a college professor at 89 because COVID shut down the campus. Right. And so now he's 90, he's active, he's sharp, he's leading TED Talks and book clubs. And
beautiful.
I mean, that's the way it should be, right?
It's going to be commonplace. It's going to be commonplace, Cody, in the next generation. I think it's going to be, it's not going to seem like it's the exception to the norm.
Yeah.
Lots of comments in the chat here. Here's a question for you, Martin, and I don't know if Activate has designed this or if you even want to share that, but Carolyn says, as a trainer to boomers, I feel like I'm trying to cover many areas of fitness: yoga, Tai Chi, strength training, agility, balance, small group training, personal training. Mm-hmm. So if you could put yourself in the center circle of the coach, would you recommend trainers specialize in certain fields or modalities, et cetera? What are your thoughts on trainer
So,
specialization.
I do have points of view on that, and I hope you'll ask that question of my colleagues at noon today. So what you're getting is my point of view, not necessarily what Activate is going to do. I think it's important to position yourself as an expert in something. If you're a Tai Chi expert, that's what you are, as a Tai Chi expert. If you're a generalist, you have to position yourself different. And it may be a little more diluted to be a generalist, but you might serve more people that way. So it's a classic case of, if I'm a specialist, it's easy to position myself that way. If I'm a generalist, a little harder to position that or own that, but I may be able to solve more clients and more customers. I think it comes down to the person. If you're not good at some of that stuff you want to deliver, I wouldn't do it. So if you're going to deliver a lot of services, be really good at them. So have lots of certifications, have lots of expertise, have lots of experience. I'm not buying from a 30-year-old trainer who can do Tai Chi and mindfulness and weightlifting and all that stuff. I'm not buying that. That's what somebody at Planet Fitness is selling. Oh yeah, I'll do whatever you want me to do. You got to be expert and you got to be experienced in order to deliver.
Well, that's one thing we talk about, even with like the functional aging specialist certification, is people say, all right, I'm now an expert in working with older adults, and the problem is you can't cover everything to the level you need in one course. And I tell people, this is the big picture view. This is going to put it all together for you. You're going to learn a lot of great stuff, but hopefully it will inspire you to say, wow, I need to learn a lot more about X, Y, or Z. And then you keep diving into that area more specifically to get more expertise. And that could be in a methodology like you're talking with balance training or something, or it could be in a population as well. The master's athlete is a completely distinct population than that frail older adult, right? Those are two completely different approaches and paradigms to training. So
yeah, it's an interesting area. I thought about that. That isn't our market for Activate, but the older athlete is a real interesting niche. That's a real interesting niche.
That's growing a lot.
Yeah, I like Dan's dad. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Those senior Olympics and all that. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting niche and I think it will grow, but that's not the mass market. That is a niche. And if you want to start making impact at a population level, my suggestion would be to appeal to the market that is inactive and afraid of the current fitness options. That's a bigger market, much bigger market.
Yep.
All right. Well, Martin, can you put that slide up again about the lunch and learn Q&A with Activate? And I know your team is going to be on. Currently, the recorded session with Maria and Adam is available. It was released this morning before Martin's talk, so you have access to that all weekend. Anytime you want to take that in, the pre-recorded sessions are there. John and Mike's will probably come available on Wednesday. And they gave some great content. I mean, if you want to get some inside view on what it's like to have 40,000 hours of operational expertise, John gives it, and how to manage multiple locations. And we had some studio owners on yesterday that said, I want to open location number 2. And so listening to those guys would be super valuable. Today at 12:30, during our lunch break, there is a live Q&A session with the Activate team, so make sure you jump into that. And then our live sessions resume at 11:30 Eastern. Make sure you check that schedule page. There's 4 different sessions going on, so you choose the right one, hop in the right Zoom room, use your code. Anything else we need to share, Cody? Otherwise, we're going to go to break.
I don't think so.
I think we're set. So you got about a 19-minute break. You can get outside, get some sunshine, and then we'll see you all back at 11:30 Eastern in one of the 4 rooms. Thanks again, Martin.
See you in Denver, everybody. Look forward to it.